you so much, everybody. Welcome to Build. I am your host, Ricky Camilleri. Our next guest was the host of The Late Late Show for 10 years. He was on Drew Carey. You can hear his voice in How to Train Your Dragon and a host of other animated movies. And now Craig Ferguson is here to talk about his third book, Riding the Elephant, a memoir of altercations, humiliations, hallucinations, and observations. Please welcome Craig Ferguson.
Thank you, everyone. Very kind of you. Thank you, Ricky.
Thank you.
Very kind of you.
So many, you've done so many other things.
I have read more than 3 books.
Oh, fair. Okay. How many would you say that you've read?
Upwards
Top
of
5
8.
favorite books.
Top 5 favorite books?
I love the book. Congratulations. You know, I told you this in the green room. I'm going to be fully transparent here. I had not read your previous 2 books, but you're a real writer. You're a wonderful writer. You actually care about the written word. This is not just a summary of appearances with celebrities or brief moments in your life.
No, that if that's what you're looking for, I think you'd be disappointed. I think that I like to write because it's at the core of everything that I do. I mean, if I was working on films or doing stand-up, you got to write it down. And then I think when I was working as an actor, I pretty much had to write the scripts most of the time because no one would give me a job. So it became what I do, and I do like to write. I like to read and I like to write.
When did you start writing?
School, I guess.
But as a vocation, as a hobby, as something that...
I think I don't know that it's a hobby. I think that I think I started really doing it when I was, actually, weirdly enough, when I was on the Drew Carey show, I think, because I started writing screenplays. What happened was that I had just moved to Hollywood, and I was ambitious to make films. And so I was looking at all the films that were getting made at the time. And, you know, I would see them in screenplays, because I was in Hollywood, so I'd see the screenplays for movies that were about to go into production. And I was thinking, I don't know if I can write any better than this, but it would be almost impossible to write anything worse than this. and that's what kind of encouraged me to go forward.
I'm wondering if you found in writing those original screenplays, was your confidence maintained, or was it shattered and you realized that there was actually a lot of work that went into even potentially a bad screenplay?
I think that...
Don't feel like you have to be humble with this answer.
No, I don't. But I don't think that that my confidence was affected by the screenplay process as much as it was by the process of making films. What happened was that I know everybody that goes to make a film goes to make a good film. No one's trying to make a bad film, and yet there are so many of them. But I solved that mystery by making a couple of bad films myself, even although the screenplays were good. And I think the difference between a screenplay and a finished film is so... it's such a big, scary process, and so much can go wrong. That affected my confidence a bit. I won't lie about that. I think I directed a film in about 2002 or 3, and I wrote the film, I starred in the film, I directed the film, and I really don't like the film at all. And that's quite an achievement.
Can I ask what happened?
Well, compromises, I think, happened, and I think this is at the core of writing. Actually, it was after this film I wrote my first book.
Because there's no compromises there.
Because
there's
no
just
compromise in writing a book. You write a book, that's what it is. In a film, you'll say, I made a lot of mistakes, and good directors do not make this mistake. They would say, take this person to play this part, and I'd say, well, I don't really want that person to play this part, and they'll say, well, if you do, then we'll let you continue in the process of making the film. And I was like, oh, okay. And sometimes I think I caved a little. In the writing of a book, you don't have to talk to anyone, you don't need anyone's permission. Other than at the end, you have to, explain to lawyers why you say a certain thing, and
family members,
that
wives,
kind of thing. There's a few people you got to call up and say, hey, heads up, this book's coming out. But there's nothing really. I don't think there's anything particularly damning in this book about anyone.
No, not at all. I'm curious though about that film that you directed. When you say compromises, is it just something like the actors, or do you find that people were changing your script as well? Or does it just come down to the daily compromises of, look, we can't shoot here because of this, and time is running out?
There's a lot of that.
And you don't really know how to be commanding. You don't know how to say no to that.
It's like you were there. I compromised on locations. I compromised on music, which is a huge thing for a movie.
Yeah.
And this was a movie about a musician, so it was a lot of, and then I even compromised on the title of the movie because we could get a piece of music that fit a title better, and it just got away from me, and it was my fault. I'm not saying it was anyone else's fault. I should have controlled the situation with more force, but I didn't have it at the time. I didn't know how to do it.
But that's the dilemma for everybody on movies, right? Actors, directors, how much control do you give up? How much requires you to have a temper tantrum, which is sometimes totally necessary in the process of making a movie?
I don't know how necessary a temper tantrum is, but I think sometimes it's understandable or forgivable. Do you remember that time Christian Bale was shamed for his outburst on the set of a film? First of all, anyone who's ever been on a film set, even like student films to multi-million-dollar productions, everyone loses it sometimes because you're tired and you're scared and you want to get it right.
High tension.
Right. But also, I think you pay this guy $20 million a picture to be unstable, dark personality, and then, in the course of the movie, he displays a slightly unstable, dark personality. I think he's to be commended. He's doing his job.
It's like, why did this boxer get into a fight outside of the ring, too?
Yeah, it seems odd to me that he was shamed for doing exactly what he was there to do. Like, he got tense during production. This means he cares.
Yeah.
I think that's okay.
So you start writing on the Drew Carey Show and you start writing screenplays.
I didn't write on the Drew Carey Show.
No.
Screenplays for other movies while I was waiting to do my 2 lines a week on the Drew Carey Show.
Is that really what it was like?
Oh, pretty much. Yeah, I would sit in my trailer and they would come and get me and go, "Time for you, Craig." I'd walk in and go, "Carey, you're fired." And then I go back to my trailer and carry on with writing.
Do you have to be there 5 days a week, even if you only have 2? Oh, because you're rehearsing and you have
and you got to be there, so you might as well do something. And I thought I could get, this was before. I'm so glad this was before smartphones, because if I'd had a smartphone, I'd have just been looking at, here's me in my trailer, here's me things, here's me, and I wouldn't have done anything. So because now all I do is just play on my phone.
Is that true?
No, I don't have any of that stuff. I don't have any social media. I don't even have a browser on my phone.
Did you ever attempt it and then just thought,
oh, yeah,
no,
I've got a Twitter account. It's got nearly 3 million followers. But full disclosure, I'm not on it. If you're talking to someone, you're not talking to me.
You've been hacked by the North Koreans.
You are talking to me. But if you're tweeting me, it's going where they go.
So what made you decide that you didn't want to participate in that yourself?
I think it was, because I used to do it. I used to be on it and I used to be part of it. I think what happened is I realized that I was trying to take in too much. I don't think the form, I hear a lot of people saying that it's bad. I don't think it's particularly bad. And I don't even think people are particularly mean, but it's too much information. Like, I would get annoyed about some guy in Denmark who didn't like a joke I had done when I had a late night show 8 years ago or something. I'm like, I really can't spend the time worrying about what Sven thought of that joke I did. I don't know if that was his name. It was his name. Worried about a joke I did 8 years ago. It's too much. It's too much to try and deal with.
So much of it is useless and unnecessary, and
it's time wasting really for me. I don't want to spend my time doing it. But at the same time, I don't want to condemn it as a thing. It is what it is. It's just not for me.
Did you ever find, and this may be a huge, huge leap and maybe too personal, excuse me if it is, in front of this large audience. Did you ever find that, you suffered from alcoholism for a certain period of time in your life?
I would say that I still occasionally suffer from alcoholism. Yeah, I don't drink alcohol anymore. But
did you find that social media in any way had the same sort of addicts effect that alcoholism did?
I don't know if social media has, but I think the technology does. I think the phones do. I think the little... It's not as dramatic. I never looked at my phone and then blacked out for 3 days and woke up in Tijuana or anything like that. But
I said it could be quite a leap.
Yeah. But it has similar qualities. Like, when I went off social media, I experienced all the feelings that I got when I came off. To a much lesser degree, but irritability, discontent, kind of like something's missing. I should be doing something. Like a restlessness, which took a while to go away. Occasionally, it still comes back. Actually, I think. Sometimes if I do a really good stand-up show, after the show, I'll think, I'll go on Twitter and get more praise. And then I think, no, that's not what's there. And also, I don't. It's just I think me personally, I think I tend to go over the top sometimes. I have an alcoholic kind of mindset.
What about when the Late Late Show finished and you didn't have a camera in front of you for a little while?
Yeah, that was great.
Was it really?
Oh yeah.
I always wonder about that because there is an addiction to the camera, I think, for some people.
I think that there is. That it's weird. It's not. I mean, look, as I sit here talking to you on camera, I don't feel an addiction to that. I don't feel a connection. Maybe because I was kind of satiated by that. I had 250 shows a year for 10 years. That's
crazy.
It's too much, and it makes you crazy.
Yeah.
Even if you're not, I've had this argument with Seth Meyers because when Seth started, I said it'll make you crazy, and he said no, I won't go crazy. And I check in with him from time to time, and he's not crazy yet, but he might get there. He's not crazy yet. I'll give him that.
How did you go crazy?
I think I went crazy because it elevates levels of selfishness and self-importance in yourself that are unhealthy. And anyone who finds themselves a little too concerned of what's going on in their Instagram account or the comments they're getting on Twitter or Instagram or whatever it is a very similar thing. If you walk into a building, if you do now, I'm not saying this happens for everyone, but this is how it happened for me. If I walk into a work environment every day, there's about 100, 120 people working on the show, all focused on me being in a good mood. It's not good, because I can't be in a good mood all the time. And also, it's an unnatural kind of, you feel like everyone's kind of being slightly dishonest with you all the time. It's kind of I imagine what it's like to be a cop. Everyone's kind of lying, you know? And it made me kind of paranoid, you know? I was like, nah, I've done enough.
How did you manage it while you were there? How did you manage that the
I don't know that
there?
I did manage it. I wasn't really even aware of that while I was there. I just wanted to stop doing it. It was only through the lens of hindsight. I go, I think that's what it was. I think that's what it was. I think I became too important in my own mind. And I think that makes me uncomfortable. It makes me, I think it's unhealthy for me.
So when you got off the show and you started doing Celebrity Name Game, which you talk about in this book,
up, you know, that's a straight up, you know, you go to do. I mean, look, I don't think anyone would say, well, you know, maybe somebody would, and I'm not. I think hosting a game show is a bit like being a realtor. It's not your first choice, but it's okay. You know, it's a decent job. You know, and
you only got to show up for the appointments.
Yeah, and they put you on, benches at bus stations and stuff like that. But I did it because it paid well, and I'm good at it. I won a couple of Emmys for it. Daytime Emmys, I'll agree, but they were still Emmys. But it's a job, and I don't think there's anything wrong with doing a job. I think sometimes I'm guilty of this, is trying to make everything I do try to appear artistic. But it's not always artistic. Sometimes it's just, you know, I used to be a bartender. I was pretty good at it. You know, it's not an artistic job particularly, but I liked it and I was good at it. And I feel that about game shows. I would do it again.
Yeah?
Yeah, it pays fantastic amounts of money.
Did you feel that way about Drew Carey as well? And is that why you started writing in the trailer?
No, I needed a job when I was doing it. I mean, I liked it too. I was an actor at the time, and it was a gig, you know, and it was a big network show. And this was at a time when, it's hard to imagine this now, but network sitcoms were huge. You know, they're not. I don't think they have quite the same impact as they did then. I mean, there are sitcoms on networks that I've never even heard of.
Oh yeah, I mean there was Game of Thrones was like the most watched HBO show ever.
Please don't
Sunday
tell me
night.
any of it because I haven't seen the last 2 episodes.
I will not.
Okay.
But I mean I can tell you the ratings, right?
Sure. Yeah.
Okay, I think it was something like 17 million, and they're like, that's just humongous. And I'm pretty sure in network's heyday in like the mid 90s or the early 90s, you would get 17 million randomly.
Like in the 80s, it'd probably get you cancelled. You know, I mean, I think we used to get about between 8 and 13 million on the Drew Carey show.
That's like basically a huge series finale now at this point on, on network
it was
television.
A different time. It's a different time. And it was okay. You know, it was just different. I think the quality of television is probably a little higher now, actually. I think the game's been pushed up a little bit. But I don't watch network television much, so I don't know what they're putting out.
What do you watch?
You know, I'm trying to think. Honestly, Game of Thrones. Barry on HBO was a sensational show.
Did you see the most?
No, I didn't know. See, I've been on the
really
road for
great. It's really great.
I have this deal with my wife that I have to wait until we go home because we watch our shows together. So I haven't been home in a couple of weeks because I've been out doing this. So when I get home, I can catch up on everything that's going on. I think sneakily, though, she's been watching Game of Thrones. I don't know why I think that. She just doesn't seem as concerned as I am about not getting the spoilers.
One of the aspects of your book that I really like is that in between these chapters that are about something that happened to you in the past or stories about your childhood, you have these brief italicized bits that are kind of like your contemporary reflection on that
Yes.
in a way. And in one of them, I mean, I just sort of like that style in the book, but in one of them, you briefly touch on American politics and this idea that we are no longer searching for the right answer. We're just searching for our guy, no matter what they've done in the past.
It does seem to look a bit like that, doesn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, it feels like a little bit like a team sport, which maybe it's always been that way. But I don't know. It seems that way to me now. It doesn't really, like, okay, he or she is an awful person, but they could win. I mean, like that whole kind of debate that's going on. Who can we get that's electable? I said, well, shouldn't we get someone who's cool? I don't know if cool is necessarily
who has ideas?
what you're looking for in a politician, but you know what I mean. Like someone that you agree with how they think, at least.
I had this argument with someone about a week ago who was like, I hate Trump. I am no Trump supporter at all. I do not like Trump. And they said, I hate Trump. I hate Trump. And I said, why? And they said, well, he's ruining the country. And I said, how? And they could not answer that question.
Yeah, well.
And I just thought, so it's really just a team sport for you at this point.
I think it does get a bit like that. Yeah, I think it gets a little
on both sides too.
Yeah, and I think what's odd about it is if you try not to talk about it, which I mean I've just done a 60-day stand-up tour where I did an hour and a half every night, not doing any politics. It was a challenge I set for myself in the show to not talk about politics.
Why is that?
Because I thought it would be an interesting discipline in a stand-up right now to try and not do it. I also thought...
I bet it felt amazing.
Oh, what I noticed was the audiences seemed to like it. Everything that everybody's angry about, me included, is still there an hour and a half later. Mm-hmm. But you can take a break. It is allowed. And I for an hour and a half, I think it's okay to not talk about it. Not that, I mean, everybody shouldn't talk about it. This was a personal thing. I'm not saying comedians shouldn't talk about politics. Comedians should talk about anything they want to talk about. But I didn't want to talk about it because I find that I'm now angry with people I agree with. Mm-hmm. Like people who say things that are like, I agree with their politics, and I'm like, shut up.
Yeah.
And I just need a breather. I personally need a breather. I think so often now, like for example, I don't eat. I'm vegan, right?
How long have you been vegan?
4 or 5 years. I'm not saying you have to be a vegan. But I think what happens is if you identify yourself, like I don't drink alcohol. I don't care if you drink alcohol. I only care if I drink alcohol. You know what I mean? It's like, that's the only thing. But I think everybody, when you say a thing about yourself, I think oftentimes it's construed as being a part of a movement to inflict your will or point of view on someone else. I don't necessarily feel that way.
You don't necessarily feel like you're inflicting your will on somebody else.
No, or trying
to.
No, I'm not trying to influence you on what you eat, although I can't see why you would eat meat or dairy of any kind. But I'm not trying to influence you to do it. I just don't want to do it.
So you did 60 dates, you said, where you, for an hour and a half, you did not talk about politics at all?
No politics at all, no.
And at what point did you decide that was going to be your mission, or at least one of your missions with these dates?
I think...
Was there something that happened, or was it just
No, there wasn't no real cause to it in the sense of, this is showing me the way. More like I knew that I would be playing right across the United States. I would be playing in places that were deep red states. I would be playing in, bright blue states. I would be playing... And I didn't want to get into it. And I also don't think anyone's going to change their mind by looking at me. I don't think that's going to happen. Also, I don't have enough in each camp Do you know what I mean? I don't have anyone that I want to go, well, this is clearly the right person. I don't have that person.
Yeah, you also have a section where you, in some ways, say that you understand when people say, why are these actors or these people from Hollywood trying to tell me what to think? Their personal lives are probably just as fucked up as mine are.
Yeah, I think that, I didn't know we could say fuck, and I'm deeply upset that I haven't sworn until now. I had no idea we could swear here. I can't tell you how uncomfortable I have been. Shit. You motherfucker, I had no idea.
You got 30 seconds, get it all out.
No, I understand people's frustration when somebody assumes because they're on TV that... But at the same time, because they're on TV, they're still allowed to have an opinion. That's okay too. So, I don't know. I'm wishy-washy on this.
We have a couple questions in the audience. Who has a question? Right here.
Hi.
Oh, hello.
Hi. We have a question from our website, buildseries.com.
Okay.
Before you built your career in entertainment, you were a bouncer for a nightclub in New York City.
Yeah.
Any funny stories you remember from that job?
Well, funny stories, I'm sure there are funny stories from that time. The fact that I remember them, well, it was the 1980s, and I had it was a different time, and I think I was doing a lot of drugs and alcohol at the time, is what I'm saying. And when I was working as a bouncer, I wasn't like a proper... I had this conversation with Vin Diesel, actually. Vin Diesel was a proper bouncer. He was like, and he would get you out there. I was the guy that went, you're not on the list. I'm sorry, you're not on the list. Vin, he's not on the list. Can you get rid of him? We didn't work at the same place, but that's what I would have done if Vin was there. So I'm afraid there probably are funny stories, but I don't know them.
Now, you lived in New York at that time for, I think you said 18 months or something like that?
Yeah.
And you have an incredible fondness for New York City.
I love New York City. Who doesn't love New York City?
Have you found that it's changed? I mean, obviously it's changed, but is your love still the same for it?
Oh, yeah. Look, it's not all bad. In fact, on the contrary, I don't want to be one of these people, it was better when everyone was getting mugged and we were all covered in disease. Because that's how New York was in the 80s. I think that... No, I think it's probably better. But stuff has been lost, and there's a little bit of the danger. I don't miss it that much though, because I'm getting old. I don't like danger, anymore. I like this is how
a peaceful walk on the High Line.
You know what it is? This is how old I am. When I see a cop now, I think, good.
Yeah.
Good. There's a cop. There's a cop here. Good. Oh, that's a relief. I'll be fine.
One more question. What do we got?
Oh, hello.
So I wanted to ask, since this is a memoir about yourself, did you hold back on some of the experiences that you wrote in the book, or did you tell everything?
Well,
it's your second memoir too, right?
Yeah, memoir sounds kind of odd to me because it's but I guess it is a memoir. It says it there. It's stories about what happened when I was there. Is it telling the story of my life? Not really. It's I have been asked that before. Like, did you hold it? I didn't hold anything back in the stories that I told, but in the stories that I didn't tell, obviously, yes. I don't. Somebody said to me once, "How do you feel about everybody knowing everything about you?" And I'm like, well, they don't. They only know what I tell them. And then if I didn't tell you it, you made it up. That's kind of it.
Yeah, I think that's one of the ways that you can see that you care about writing, is that the stories that you tell within the book are the stories that you clearly have something to say about, or you have an interest in writing about them. It is not just a birth to now gloat.
No, and it's not linear either. It's
exactly.
And also there is a story which at the end of the book is completely fictional. Which is, I say, I'm going to write a completely fictional story about someone who really existed. And at the end of the book, I write a completely fictional story. It is 100% made up. But it could be true, because sometimes that happens.
How often do you write? Do you write every day? No,
I wish I did. I'm I'm writing another book right now, which is a very different type of, it's literary fiction, which will make no money at all, and it's and that's a real.
Wait, a literate? You mean you're writing a novel?
Yes, it's a novel. Yeah, and it's taking longer than I would like it to, but that's kind of like riding an elephant. It's like it's going where it's going to go, and I'm just on for the ride. So I don't write every day. Some days I wish I did, because I think that's a better way to write. I tend to write when I'm in Scotland. That's when I write.
Why is that?
Because I don't have to be here doing this.
Are you the type of person who can be like, I've got 2 hours to write today, I'm just gonna write for 2 hours, or do you need like an open day to sit and ponder and think and write and walk around? Or?
Usually what happens is that I do what I think a lot of people who write do, is I find ways to avoid the act of writing, and then I finally write. Once the drapes are finally wrinkle-free, it's time for me to write. You know what I mean? It's like, once the refrigerator is pristine clean, I'll do something.
Eating everything there is to eat inside the refrigerator, it's time to get down to business.
There is that, yeah.
Well, Craig, I love the book. Congratulations. And thank you so much for being here. It's a pleasure to see you again.
Lovely to be here.
The book is on shelves now. It's called Riding the Elephant, a memoir of altercations, humiliations, hallucinations, and observations. And it's Craig Ferguson. Let's hear it, everybody.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you.